Welcome to the Channing Memorial Church Summer Web Service for August 23rd. Recently, a man recognized as kind, generous, and honorable died, the Representative John Lewis. John Lewis worked for years as a leader in the civil rights movement starting in the early 1960s, and then in the 1980s became a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, where he served for 33 years trying to bring about racial justice to our country. That is 60 years of work, all done with an extraordinary degree of kindness towards others. Our guest preacher today asks for us to think about how we can practice and appreciate the combination of perseverance and kindness as a way to live into our Unitarian Universalist principles. As we light this flame of our chalice, may it spark in each of us the sentiments of connection and commitment. Commitment to work for justice for all people, even when the work gets difficult, and the fortitude to remain connected to other people through difficulties and challenges, as we do in times of good and ease. I invite us now to let go of rushing. Let go of feeling we must do something. And let our minds soak in the beauty of the music offered to us as a gift by Channing Church member Norm Moore.
Oh, the cuckoo, she's a pretty bird, and she warbles as she flies. She never hollers cuckoo till the 4th day of July.
Channing Church member Chris Laudon has been doing some thinking about the life and legacy of John Lewis. And in her presentation today, invites us to consider how we can appreciate and practice the valuable combination of perseverance and kindness in a way that enables us to live up to our Unitarian Universalist principles. Chris is a longtime member of Channing Church. She served on the church board and the finance committee, currently serving as the committee chair. Was on the Vision 2025 task force that laid out a plan for improving our facilities, and now is the chair of the newly formed capital campaign team, and just recently became a member of the worship committee. I present to you Chris Laudon.
Good morning. I'm Chris Laudon, and I'm here to speak for today's service. The subject I took was perseverance. And the way I came across this particular subject was when I was watching the funeral service for John Lewis. I was struck by the commentary about his very remarkable perseverance, in that he spent his lifetime working for civil rights and justice, and he did it not just for effect, but he did it with kindness and with love. So I decided to explore the idea of perseverance for my talk today. I think many of us actually practice perseverance. It's often an unrecognized skill and unapplauded, especially if it's done with a certain strength of spirit. Think of the major challenges that many of us face at some point in our lives, like illness or disability, pain, loss. And we all work with personal and existential questions of identity and relationships, values, and finding meaning in our lives. Now, the word perseverance comes from the Latin perseverantia, which is per for through, and severus, which is severe. So this implies that this is not just persistence, but it's to abide by something strictly, by which I mean I take to mean through using your values, laws, standards, your goals. To quote William Ellery Channing, difficulties are meant to rouse, not discourage. The human spirit is to grow strong by conflict. And this is where our commitment to practicing our UU principles intersects. Work to further respect for the worth and dignity of all people. Work to further justice in the democratic process. Work to build peace, justice, and liberty for all, and to build respect for the web of all existence. This requires perseverance. C.S. Lewis then said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." And that requires a certain steadfastness, endurance, and an attitude that you're just not going to give up. So I began to wonder, now how do you learn perseverance? Many of us had parents who read to us a children's book called The Little Engine That Could. You may recognize that. Or maybe you just found a copy recently, as I did, and read it to a child in your life. Note that in that story, the fancy and strongest engines did not help the train get over the mountain, but instead the smallest and most determined one did. And he was the one that was willing to help. So you remember the phrase in that, I think I can, and then when they got there, I thought I could. This is what we teach children. We all have this in our brains, probably from our own childhoods. And then how do we go as adults and practice this? Personally, I look to the heroes. There are people all around me who persevere and who have persevered through illness and loss and difficulties in their lives. And I also look to the heroes who have worked for justice, equality, and civil rights, who spent decades organizing and demonstrating for women's suffrage 100 years ago. Acknowledge and support the environmentalists who began in the days when they were building the national parks and then fighting for clean water and clean air, and then against pollution, and now for climate change. Read about and be inspired by people like the Dalai Lama, who sustained his people and carried his culture to a new place in a diaspora. Nelson Mandela, who survived prison and then came out a changed person, able to lead people. And I found a wonderful quote by him: "It always seems impossible until it is done." Frances Perkins, someone I had not known about, but who was an admirable person. She was the FDR's Secretary of Labor, and she took the job only because he promised that he would allow her to work for women, for workers' rights, for women's rights, for children's rights, for Social Security, unemployment, and universal health care. There are people historically, Harriet Tubman, who was brave and escaped slavery, brought others to freedom, and then served in the Civil War and spent years working for women's suffrage. Roger Williams, who built our colony of Rhode Island on the basis of freedom for religious conscience, and he respected Native Americans and their culture. Also be inspired by all of the many scientists, writers, artists who have built our culture and sustained our fund of knowledge. With this kind of inspiration, how can we not persevere? And I have a personal example to add with this story. My parents, after their retirement in 1974, moved to Harwich on Cape Cod and began volunteer work, largely through their church. Now, the community where they lived didn't have any housing, affordable housing for low-income, older, or disabled people. And then my father joined an organization of various church leaders in different churches who built a nonprofit volunteer organization that continued for over 20 years and built 3 different housing complexes for a total of 153 units in this town. Now, mind you, this is in the situation where building housing for low-income people in a relatively affluent small town meant that you were finding funding, you were finding land, you were going through all the approvals of architects and engineers and environmental regulations and local and state and federal agencies getting federal funding. There are roadblocks, difficulties, government applications, and all the not in my backyard issues that happened. I used to walk these building sites with my dad and look over all the building plans, and every time he and I talked on the phone or visited, we talked about these projects. This was his chosen retirement life. It took the last stage of this, where they built the last group of buildings, took 9 years of his life, and they finally finished it, and it was occupied just before his death in 2003. And I'm borrowing another quote from Helen Keller, he would agree with this. A bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. So that's the conclusion of my perseverance conversation. However, due to the magic of Google, I found out that there is a new Mars rover that was launched in July on the 30th, and it's called Perseverance. It's expected to arrive in Mars on February 18th of 2021. And it has a helicopter attached to it that's called Ingenuity. Now, I kept thinking, these words are quite wonderful. Because the previous rover, the one that went before the Perseverance, was called Curiosity. So I think there is this connection between the word curiosity, the determination for perseverance, and then the fact that its tool was called Ingenuity. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful Sunday.
Most every Sunday we sing Spirit of Life as part of our service, and today is no different. So I invite you to sing, or hum, or dance, or sway, or just sit quietly and let the music flow over you as a meditation. Spirit of Life. Deep Within You is a short meditation written by the Reverend Andy Bakula. Let's consider his words as we bring this service about perseverance and kindness to a close. Deep within you, there is a place of peace, a place of wisdom, a place of love. May this sacred center be your guide. May it be your strength for the journey. May it fill you with hope when all seems hopeless. May it guide you to show compassion and kindness. And may it lead you to know the sacredness in all. Now to close out our service, I once again present Norm Moore.